Trump got because the narrative is anti-Trump.
I don't side Democrat or Republican because I like to think independently, and I think you're the same way.
Totally.
But the thing is, if I see something, I don't like a lot of what Trump does. I think he's made a lot of really dumb decisions, to be honest. But the thing is,
can you tell me some of them? Because I actually am a Trump fan, so I'm curious.
The thing on the bus with Access Hollywood, I'm talking about that sort of thing.
Oh, okay.
I'm talking about that sort of thing.
Okay.
However, here's the thing. A lot of people bash him no matter what he does. Mm-hmm. And to me, that negates your opinion when you disagree with every single thing that someone does, regardless of what they do. So I kind of have started seeing that, and I'm like, well, I'm going to start picking out things that he does that I actually agree with. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people think it's a race thing. I have a very good Hispanic friend who has always been a Trump supporter. Mm-hmm. And, I know women who are. So it's really not it's an ideology thing,
Well, I think with that is the media wants to make it about race or about sex. And back to our previous conversation is it shouldn't be about any of those things because we all should be equal as humans. Yep. And if you're operating from the light of equality, okay, pick any topic within the Trump agenda. And I'd love to talk about it from both sides, from the left side and from the right side.
Let's go with the wall.
Oh, the wall's easy. Okay. The wall is a simple one. Yeah. Let's think about the idea of border. Why do you have a border?
To separate, nationalities, I guess. I don't know. I mean, originally it was to separate tribes. Now mm-hmm. it's to separate nations, because this one wants to believe these things. This one wants to believe these things. If they were to combine, they probably wouldn't get along as well as we wish they would,
Yeah. So like I think of a border. A border is like a lot of borders are oceans, rivers. There's a lot of natural borders in the world, like mountain ranges are usually a big national border. The reason you have a border is like that. You have a separation. And I think the narrative for the last 20 years is having a one world order where we're all one, right? We live in this one government, one world thing. Globalization. Yep. And then this brings up the conversation, globalism versus nationalism.
Yep.
And by looking at the results of pretty much every country around the world, people have their own values from their own cultures. And those have been around for a very long time, right? They got it from their parents. They got it from their parents. And there's some good ones. There's some bad ones, right? We can argue for both sides. Mm-hmm. But we have a situation in America where we provide, with government assistance, we provide healthcare. There is free healthcare for a lot of people. If you get shot and you get sent to the emergency room, you don't have to pay for it. They'll charge you, but like you get the care without having to physically pay for it, right?
Yep.
Okay, what happens about unemployment? So I quit my job. I could have qualified and be on unemployment right now. I'm not by my own moral choice, but 50% of Americans, half, are on some type of government assistance, right? What happens when you add more people to that pot?
Well, the lesser group of people ends up supporting more and more people is kind of what happens. Yeah.
Yeah. And think about this. Do you think that there's anyone in the world right now, anyone who's applying for legal citizenship in the United States?
Anyone in the world right now who is applying?
Yes, no. Do you think anyone in the world is legally applying to come to America?
Yeah, I actually know somebody from Gustavus who did.
Okay.
But she was already here, she was already here.
My point being, there are people who want to legally join this country, right?
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm trying to go yes, no. I'm trying to make it as extremely opposite as possible. Yeah, so we're going to say yes. We're going to say there's people who want to.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm.
When you have open borders or when you have an ability to go across the border illegally, yet still qualify for benefits within the country, it's a huge slap in the face to anyone who's trying to join legally. Right? Like, I just think about this logically. Hey, you want to join the country? You got to spend 3 to 5 years. Like, I have friends from all over the world, from different countries, citizens, non-citizens, right? It's a lot of work to come into the country on a student visa, on a work visa.
Oh, yeah.
Right? It's a lot of work.
Yep.
But and a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of paperwork and all your education to make yourself prepared to pass these exams. Like, most people who become citizens know more about America than the citizens themselves.
Oh, because you have to.
You have to learn and pass the test.
Yep.
Most Americans wouldn't pass that test.
Nope.
Like, it sounds horrible, but most of them wouldn't.
Most Americans wouldn't pass an 8th grade history test.
Yeah. This it's and here's the challenge. So we're talking about a border, right?
Yep.
We're talking about why do you have a border? And it's to separate people from these different countries who have different rules and different benefits of living in America versus benefits of living in Mexico. You can argue Mexico is a better place to live. You can argue America is a better place to live. It just depends where you are within that country, obviously.
Yeah.
So with border security, I'm frustrated because the logical sense is 100% you should have a border. You should have border patrol. You should have a physical border between these two places. If people can come in, like, it makes logical sense. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying that how people get treated while trying to cross is necessarily justified, but it's theoretically invasion. Mm-hmm. If you get 10,000 people trying to cross your border throughout history, that's been war, right?
Yeah.
Like,
so I have a question for you. So okay. let's say you have a neighbor who's having and I'm not trying to I'm just
be as devil's advocate as possible, Chad.
Okay,
I love it.
So you have a neighbor who's having drug problems in their house, and some of that is crossing over to your house through the yelling, through people hanging out in the front, who do not look like they're very unsavory characters. Mm-hmm. So what do you, I guess, because that's essentially what's happening. Mexico has a horrible drug problem. They have absolutely, they're desolated with the violence that's down there, and people are escaping to get away with that. It's the same thing as they're coming from Chicago to Minnesota mm-hmm. to get away from the stuff going on in Chicago. So my question is, would it not then make more sense to try to help your neighbor to get that done so that problem doesn't continue to exist, rather than build a higher wall between your neighbor's house and yours? Because those problems are still going to happen. They're still mm-hmm. going to find ways. And that's why I think the State Department is incredibly underfunded compared to the defense budget, because we could be doing so much more diplomacy in this world. And you look at how the European Union has done things.
The E is the joke, man.
However,
okay.
if it can keep wars from happening,
but wars are happening,
but not in Europe.
Well, no, okay. Look at homicide rates.
Yep.
Look at how much of the homicide is associated with drug violence or illegal activity. A lot mm-hmm. of those reasons are because the reason why a lot of people carry guns is mm-hmm. for unsavory reasons. Yep. But there's also the people who carry guns for their own safety, and the gun debate's a whole nother one.
Yeah.
But I agree, because I think locally, I think we have to make a difference locally. I think you choose where you live based on your economics, based mm-hmm. off of where you work, based off where your family, you pick a location to live. I think it's important. I don't think people know their neighbors at all these days. I think most people don't know almost anything about their neighbors. Like, no. I grew up in a neighborhood where I knew 50 people within 3 blocks of me, because I was out in the yard, I was hanging out with other kids, I was talking to other people.
Yep.
And I grew up in the suburbs.
Yep.
So that's an advantage. I think living in the cities, a lot of the time, you don't know your neighbor. There's so many people there, it's hard to know everyone.
All they're noisy or they're not noisy.
Yep. You only notice them when they affect your life. So exactly. If they're loud, you notice them. Or if they're kind to you or make you food, you notice